I'm at Hurst Priory, built in the early to mid 18th century. This country house is in the parish of Belton on the Isle of Axholme. The Priory is a charming, historic, multi-award winning wedding and events venue located in some beautiful grounds. My name's Paul Holloway, and today I will be presenting a session on video conferencing tips. First question, why are you using video conferencing? It could be remotely to meet clients, or maybe you're making an appearance in the media. You could be recording content to then load up onto social media, or maybe you've got some clients coming that are including remote delegates in a conference, or you could be hosting a webinar. Whatever your reason for using video conferencing, hopefully some of these tips will help. Now, which platform should you be using? Well, this question really comes down to what are your clients using? If your client feels more comfortable using a particular platform, that's probably the one that you should be using. But shall we have a look at some of the main players on the market? Zoom is out there with the biggest market share. In 2021, over 55% of video conferencing in the UK was on Zoom. Personally, I think it's the easiest platform to use. It's certainly very easy when presenting and has loads of great features. Now, of course, there is a limit as to the length of a meeting. At the time that we're filming this, after 40 minutes, if there's more than 2 people, your meeting will be cut off. However, if you do want to go pro with Zoom, it's not that expensive, so most businesses should be able to bring in that cost. Then, of course, there's Microsoft Teams with just under 20% of the market share. Teams was launched in 2017 as part of Microsoft's 365 package. Now, that has the benefit that it's linked in to so many other pieces of software on Microsoft, and lots of companies are using it. So if your client is used to using Teams and you're hosting an event, then you need to get your head exactly around how to use it. One word of warning, as an Apple user myself, I've found during lockdown when I was doing delivery remotely using Teams that there are some Apple products that have little glitches, such as Keynote Multimedia when using Teams. Now, these are always being ironed out. So these problems, and there's always a workaround as well, but it is worthwhile if you're using Apple with Microsoft Teams just to test what you're planning to run or what your clients plan to run and make sure it works. Third in the market share is Skype, which was, of course, the market leader before lockdown. Skype is also owned by Microsoft, and I think really it's just a heritage platform that they've kept running for those that are used to it. I expect Skype's market percentage as a platform for video conferencing will continue to diminish, but if you have a client that is used to using it, then you may still need to get your head around how to use Skype. And finally, quite surprising that Google Meet only had 4% of the market share in 2021. I reckon that's probably risen since then. It's much bigger already in America and the #1 platform in India. And of course, the main advantage of Google Meet is you don't actually have to download any software to join a meeting. It's all based on the internet through your browser. So they're the 4 main platforms in the UK at the moment. You may find there's one in there that you're familiar with that you feel like you would rather use. But it is, of course, important to remember if you're hosting an event and your clients are more familiar with one of the other platforms, you need to make sure you've got your head around that. I always recommend as well giving your clients the opportunity to get into your venue and test the platform, test the video conferencing before the event so it runs smoothly for you and for them. So always advising them to do that if at all possible. So we're going to look at some basics how to improve your presentation on video conferencing. We're going to look at the background behind you, the light, the sound, and of course, how you position your camera. So one of the first things to think about is your background. Now that's not just tidying up and making sure that the place isn't looking cluttered. This is your opportunity to use that space to sell your business. Today, I'm here at Hurst Priory, and you can see the room where I'm talking to you from has been set up for a wedding. It's also an opportunity to get your brand in or show off any unique selling points for your business. So if you've got a pop-up banner or something, maybe consider putting that in the background. There's also a question about whether to use a virtual or a real background. Well, virtual backgrounds can be great, but they're not always completely perfect. There's always that little thing with your hands moving around. It doesn't quite look like you're really there. Zoom in particular has an option, if you tick in settings, the green screen option, and then just get some green canvas behind you, it will improve your virtual background if you should so choose to use that. It's also very important, especially if you're making an appearance in the media or something like that, to make sure that the speaker's name is correct. You don't want to have somebody using your Zoom account before and has changed it to something inappropriate. So just check that out. And as with everything, before you use video conferencing for anything within business, do a test run with a colleague and just make sure that the background's looking great and everything's working perfectly. Next thing to consider is the light. Really important, the main source of light should be behind the camera. So if the best feature at your property is the fantastic views onto the garden, if you're inside with that behind, we won't be able to see you. You'll just be a silhouette. So it's important to make sure that the light is shining on you or whoever's presenting to the camera. You could consider using a ring light that you see being used by makeup artists and by internet vloggers. They're pretty reasonably priced and very easy to plug in to a USB. If you're using Zoom or other platforms, you might want to play around with filters. My advice here would be to tread very lightly. Some of the filters that are on there can make things look a little bit smoother, but they can also look a bit gimmicky. So I'd say you'd be better to get the light looking right naturally in your environment the best you can, rather than messing around with filters. And finally, checking the light, checking how you look, do a test run. Remember that sound is always 50% of anything people are receiving, whether you're recording something on video conferencing or in a meeting. So it's always important to reduce any background noise. Close windows, doors, and just think about the sound within the room. Is there an awful lot of echo? One way to get rid of echo is to bring soft furnishings into the room from where you are presenting. You can pick up some very reasonably priced, good quality USB mics that you can plug into the back of your computer and will improve your sound quality. Once again, if you're planning a big presentation or a big event, best thing to do beforehand is find somebody that you can do a test run on. Another thing to consider is getting your camera set up at the right level. Here's a tip. As we all get older, we don't look particularly good if filmed from below. The old double chins start to show, and nobody wants to look up your nose. So getting the camera set at eye level, so you're looking straight at the camera, is a great idea, just as I am doing now. Remember, once you've set yourself up there, you're framing yourself within your background, and if you're using a laptop, you could always use some books or something to prop it up so you're making sure you're at the right height and there's plenty of room around you, so you've got a little bit of room to breathe. Remember always, of course, to look at, is it green light normally? Might not be with your particular computer, but looks directly at the camera when you're talking. If you're looking away at something else, it can, of course, be a little bit distracting. And again, of course, whenever using video conferencing for business, it's a great idea to spend some time with a colleague and do a test run before, just to make sure that you're looking really good. Finally, it's important to be yourself and relax. Now, everybody gets self-conscious, and I think a lot of people have got used to using video conferencing through lockdown who wouldn't have dreamt of doing it before. It's a new way of the world, and getting used to it's important. If you're making an appearance in the media and you're not feeling particularly comfortable doing it, maybe look for somebody else on your team. Important thing is to concentrate on the content and tell the story. If you're hosting an event for clients, remember they might be feeling nervous too. So it's always good to take some time to reassure them, get them set up, make sure they're looking fine, all the technical stuff is working, and then everything should run nice and smoothly. So that's the end of this session on video conferencing tips. I hope you've found the session interesting and useful.